Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1473 of the Locked on Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Monday evening into Tuesday. And today's show is brought to you by the Gametime app. Create an account, use the promo code Locked on NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And today's show with myself and Robby Kalland of UPROXX and UPROXX Sports, talking about a little bit of Hawk stuff at the top of the podcast and some Eastern Conference Finals talk. Also, there's a second part of this podcast coming sort of in bonus fashion with some Western Conference Finals talk, as well as some landing spots for Victor Wembanyama ahead of the lottery, which happens on Tuesday evening. So plenty to get to, about an hour plus of content, this main show, and then sort of a bonus episode after this. Robby's always fun to talk to, and I also want to encourage you at the top of the podcast as well to make us your first listen each and every day. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, also YouTube, etc. And please, please, please subscribe to the show and tell a friend about the podcast. Without further delay, I will talk to Robby Kalland in a moment. But first, the intro. I'll be back with Robby, Eastern Conference Finals talk, and of course, some stuff about the Hawks at the top of the show.
You are Locked on Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm joined once again by my friend Robby Kalland of Dime and UPROXX Sports. Robby, welcome back to the podcast where you are a frequent guest, although probably the most frequent guest that's not a day-to-day Hawks person. So hello, welcome back.
Happy to be here.
You used to be a Hawks person.
I did used to be a Hawks person.
They don't know Robby's work. He used to work at Hawks.com.
For those unfamiliar with the 2013-14 Atlanta.
Yeah, Hawks.com. Peachtree Goose before that.
12-13. Yeah.
Score Atlanta. What else? What did you do?
Oh,
what else did you do
yeah,
here?
the Score Atlanta days. That was where I got my start.
Anyway, all kinds of things. Robby has Atlanta credentials.
He
He doesn't live
rest in power, fan buzz.
He doesn't live here anymore, but it's he's plugged in. And we're going to do a little bit of Hawks, but as I said in the intro before I brought Robby in, we're going to talk about the conference finals because it's kind of my one opportunity to do that. In between, this is a dead period. I'm recording on Monday night. There's no game. What's going on? It's bizarre. And also the lottery is tomorrow. So we'll do a little bit on where we want or don't want Victor Wembanyama to land if we have our druthers. First, though, you actually spent some time together during the Hawks-Celtics series. We were traveling and going to weddings and all kinds of things. To say that we talked about the Hawks on this podcast, I will throw to you because, you're not watching all 82, but I got the impression through people that we both know that cover the league that there was a general people were kind of impressed by the Hawks in that series, not necessarily blown away, and a little bit of a sort of the side-eye to Boston, who is still playing, but Boston is kind of Boston, and that Game 5 was like partially because Boston didn't play very well. But what did you make of what you saw from the new look Hawks down the stretch to kind of maybe salvage some of the morale from otherwise kind of down season?
Yeah, I mean, I think the series was good in that it gives people a little bit, like you said, it gives that optimism that Quinn's going to kind of open some things up. You're going to, Trey seemed very happy. He was kind of effusive in his praise of Quinn, talking about how this is the guy we've been wanting. And, when so much of what the Hawks can do relies on Trey buying in, that's a big thing. Like, that's not nothing to have Trey believe in a coach in the way that it seems he believes in Quinn.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's been the case. I don't remember what all he said when Nate got hired. I know he was probably fairly excited, but I don't know if it was quite like this.
It was not. It was not like this.
Yeah.
I mean, he was positive, but it was. I noted too. Like, this is the most.
He went out of his way to do it, right? Like,
yeah.
he wasn't getting asked like thoughts on Quinn. Like, it was just kind of like we're getting there.
Yeah.
So that is the most notable thing for me to come out of the series, because otherwise, I guess, Bogey looking a little more Bogey-like at times,
being healthy
and being healthy. Like, I mean,
yeah.
But really, like, he hasn't been healthy for 2 years, and that is really important, especially with the new contract that he's got. There's not a lot of flexibility to move and add real pieces to this team unless you get back stuff for John, which is, the assumption is that Collins is the one that gets moved this offseason. I still don't know what that trade looks like. I don't know if the goal of that trade is to kind of replenish the cupboard from the Murray deal in terms of draft picks. I don't know if the goal of that deal is going to be to land a starting caliber role player. I don't know exactly what that looks like. And I'm not sure the Hawks right now even know what's out there and what that looks like. Obviously, you can have goals, and then goals have to change when you get to the market and find out what a guy is valued at. But yeah, I mean, like, I think if you're looking for the positive, it is Trey's very happy with what Quinn can do offensively for him and for the team. I think DeJounte was probably your most consistent offensive player in the series. Is that fair to say? Because kind of Trey rode the highs and lows, and DeJounte was DeJounte for better and worse, I guess, in the series. So you kind of feel comfortable knowing what he's going to give you, and you just hope that Trey can hit that high mark more. Also, I think it was just good to see Trey have a good postseason series against a team that's keying in on him defensively. You know, he started slow, but he had a couple good games, and coming off that Miami series where he was just flat out bad, you know, a year ago, that also means something. So yeah, I get where the optimism is. I also think you look at that series and you say, like, we're optimistic about losing a game in 6. Like, something still needs to change your outlook on what this team looks like in terms of contending, because you've invested partially enough to make that the goal. Now it's a matter of, will we see further investment?
Well, I mean, you covered
to make it happen, and I think Hawks fans know exactly what that means, and we'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, you cover the whole league, and I was talking with somebody about this offline the other day. It's actually something I was going to bring up, and it's the difference between being competitive in that series, which is important, and they played well, and it's a reminder on some level that even when they made their run in 2021, they weren't some juggernaut regular season team that year. They were the 5 seed, and like, that's the next frontier is not even, it's kind of weird to say this, but it's not even so much about playoff results. I mean, it's obviously playoff results are what matter at the end of the day, but can you go out and win 50 games? Like, can you go be a real team for 82? Because they basically had a half of a season in 2021 where they were really at that level for more than a couple of weeks. They did it for like 2-3 months at the end of that season. And other than that, it's been flashes. Like, yeah, they got better at the end of the year 2 years ago before they ran into Miami and totally fell apart, and they had injuries. This year, they never really did it. I mean, famously this year, they did not ever have a run in them at any point. It was like they were just win one, lose one, win two, lose two for months and months. And like, yeah, it's encouraging that they took Boston to 6. And the way that I said, I think with Glenn on our podcast recently, is like, that series felt to me like a 1 seed Boston team. They weren't the 1 seed, but they were that quality of a team.
Yeah.
And like the way the Hawks were playing, you could convince me that that was like a 4 or 5 seed kind of team, the way they were playing. But they have not proven that over 82. So like, it's like, you know, I go back to Quinn, and I said some nice stuff about Quinn the other day, and I got some Hawks fans that I was kind of surprised, like, well, they didn't win under him when he took over. And it's like, well, he took over in the middle of the season. He couldn't just be a miracle worker.
Right.
And Quinn has some playoff questions that he has to answer from Utah. But one thing is like not in question is like he was a heck of a regular season coach in Utah. Yep. So like, I think that also gives you a little bit of optimism that, like, I'm not saying that they're going to go out and be the 2 seed next year, but I think that anything short of like real improvement over 82 is going to be met with a lot of resistance, because once you get into playoffs, anything can kind of happen. We see that with Philadelphia. We saw it with Milwaukee this year, all that stuff. But like, you got to go out and like, how about being a top 4 seed for the first time? That'd be nice. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. If you've ever been trying to find tickets to a big event at the last minute, it can be stressful and really not the best idea for your emotions or your wallets. And after all, buying tickets should not be a hassle. With Gametime, you have the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for sports and music and comedy and theater. And with killer deals and last-minute tickets and the best price guarantee, you can also avoid stress and start getting hyped for the fun that you actually have at the event. Spring is here. There's tons happening in Atlanta. I'm sure there is around you as well, wherever you may be. And with Gametime, you can get flash deals, last-minute tickets, and it's so easy to find out tickets they're looking for each and every event that you might be interested in. Also see images of where your seats might happen to be inside the venue, and they have protection if your event happens to get canceled. Forget the months of planning in advance. They have tickets and deals on tickets right up to the day of the event with Gametime. And the Gametime guarantee means also you'll get the best price possible. If you find tickets in the same row in the same section for less, you'll get 110% of the difference from Gametime. It's the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. You can buy tickets just a matter of seconds, and they'll be sent directly to your phone to make things easy for you. Download the Gametime app right now, create an account, get the promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem that promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your purchase. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first goal, and I think this should be the first goal for kind of every team that's not in that championship contention category, just based off who they are. The first goal has to be top 6, and like ideally comfortably top 6, where you're not going into the last week of the regular season fighting for the last guaranteed playoff spot. Like, if that should be the initial benchmark for the Hawks next year. Because you look at the East, and Milwaukee might have some changes. There's some things that could genuinely get.
They already have one change already. We know
they already have one change. But also, like, the one change is apparently going to be, we want Bud, but we want different Bud based on who they're interviewing. Like, they're interviewing a bunch of Bud assistants.
Honestly, and I mean, you and I are sort of uniquely qualified to talk about like the Charles Lee, Kenny Atkinsons, because like they run Bud's staff, and like it's funny. Like I remember Charles being the young guy on Bud's staff.
Yep.
And now he's been the head assistant in Milwaukee the last couple of years since Darvin's gone. At least this year since Darvin's been gone. But like, yeah, that would be the, not to make it about the Bucks, but like it's a weird situation where like maybe they run it back and just kind of do the same thing, or maybe they don't bring it. I mean, they have Middleton and Lopez and all that stuff. So there's
a lot of change that could happen there. So that's one team that, they have Giannis, so they're going to be really good. But like that's a team that could undergo some changes and just look different. The Sixers could look real different next year.
Yeah, I mean, Boston's the one team.
Boston's the one that you expect to come back and be. You
kind of have to assume they'll be a top 2 or 3 seed in the East. Yeah. Cleveland was good this year and had a terrible playoff series, but they were good in the regular season. Like genuinely, like they were top 3 in the league in net rating. So like that, they're probably going to win games, and they're not
going to blow things up. With the core, and that's a core that can win regular season games, as we saw.
The Knicks.
They're
the Knicks. They're
the Knicks. They're who they are. Like the Hawks should be better than the Knicks. But I firmly believe that. I firmly believe that. I think maybe that's your benchmark. Like,
and also if you want to look at it, let's, even if we assumed, and we should not assume that, as we just said, Milwaukee and Philadelphia, if we assume that they just are kind of the same and they're still good, even if you assume that, that's 3 teams. If you want to say Cleveland, maybe that's the 4th. Like that's the top 4 from this year. Nobody else scares you too much. I mean, you got the Knicks. Brooklyn's taken a large step back for obvious reasons since they've made all the moves they made. Miami, regular season wise, is not very scary to me. So like, there's no reason the Hawks shouldn't be aiming for the 4-5. And obviously, you want to be even better than that. Clearly, I'm sure that internally they're not going to say we want to be the 5 seed. But you're right. I think that even this year, and Nate got some heat for it early in the season, he kept saying their goal was top 6. And it's a very frank goal. They didn't make it. But like just not being in the play, honestly, like not being in the play-in after 2 years in the play-in, like if they're in the play-in next year, barring huge injuries, like then you're talking about like a weird, like full-on overhaul situation, I think.
Correct.
Because right now, if I had to guess, and I've said this before, but they're not going to do the full overhaul now. It might be a trade here, trade there in the front court, but like the core of the team, Trey, DeJounte, they're not going to do anything with those guys. Yeah, Quinn's going to be there. They're going to give him a year. But yeah, if they win 40 games next year, then you're talking about real, like not necessarily panic, but like it's time to like make some real changes. Probably
at that point, it's time to evaluate everyone on the roster in terms of whether they are the guy, and that's so like. And again, I think that comes down to, that's part of why the Trey thing is so interesting in terms of what he said about Quinn. Is like that kind of takes the onus on him to buy in a way that I'm not sure we've totally seen, and that should be exciting from a Hawks fan perspective. Like that's why I took those comments as kind of eyebrow raising as I did. Is that doesn't seem to be the type of quote that Trey has ever really given. and it should be exciting, but it also puts a little bit of pressure to make that thing work, because there shouldn't be excuses if your star player's that excited about what the coaching staff is going to be installing and about what they're going to be asking him to do. That takes away any real excuses that it is, not everybody on the same page. And so if that's the case, then it's on the results to come from that. And like you said, like the base goal should be top 6, especially in the East that has some teams in the middle that are going to be, that should be in the Hawks range at minimum, Cleveland, New York, and then has teams at the top that could see some changes, particularly Philly. I mean, there is no way Philly is not going to have a fairly different roster.
I can't see them running it back, and we should at least say out loud teams like, Toronto had the same record as the Hawks this year, and they could improve. I don't know if they're gonna, but they could. I have no idea what they're gonna do. No clue. It's too early for all this stuff. But like the general point is like there's only a team or two. I think honestly the only team that's like for sure going to be projected ahead of the Hawks next year, barring something crazy, is Boston.
I would think Milwaukee just because Giannis exists. Giannis exists.
If they have Giannis and Drew, especially, because Drew's not a free agent. Middleton and Lopez are free agents, but if they have Giannis and Drew and fill around and try to fill around them, they're going to be good at a minimum, you would think. Yeah. But 100%. Philly's got flexibility to say something.
That's one word.
That's one way to put it. Brooklyn is who knows. New York is who knows. I mean, they had a good run this year, but then they had their playoff stuff. Miami. I was low Miami all year, and now they're in the conference finals. I don't know what to make of Miami.
Well, can I do a quick Miami tangent real fast?
Oh, we're gonna do some conference finals talk, but yes, do it now. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well,
that's fine.
So like my favorite thing that keeps coming up is like the Spos never won Coach of the Year thing, and like, they've the only time he would have won Coach of the Year was last year. That's the only time he would have been, like, because it's a regular season award.
It comes down to the
we know he's great in the playoffs.
The antiquated, and I don't like Coach of the Year. I don't like a lot of the awards, but Coach of the Year, the way that Coach of the Year is always almost.
We didn't think you were going to be good, and now you're good.
It's and that's why people are like, why do they all get fired? I'm like, because they get the award for overachieving, and then you can't just overachieve every year.
Right.
Like Mike Brown did a great job this year. Mike Brown should have been the Coach of the Year. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But like, is Mike Brown the best coach in the NBA? No, he's not.
Sure.
That's not the award. And Spo is a great example of that. Like, I think everyone agrees if he's not number 1, he's in the top 3. But like, if you don't ever win games in the regular season at the highest level, like last year they were the 1 seed.
Last year they were the 1 seed. That was the one time, because like, here's the thing: when he was never going to win Coach of the Year when he had the big 3,
LeBron and Wade.
Like nobody was ever like, yeah, that's the coach, because that was the whole thing. Like when they were like, okay, is Spo actually like that dude? Like he's winning with these guys. And then they were always like the little overachievers that could in the playoffs. That's what they've been. Like they were never an offensive juggernaut, like a regular season juggernaut before last year. And even last year, they won like 50 something. Like they didn't win like a huge.
No, they were pretty modest, right? 1 seed. Yeah,
it was just like a weird year in the East
or something. Yeah.
So like, I get it. Like he's, again, like you said, like I would vote him as the best coach in the league.
He's very good,
but he's like, part of it is he doesn't, like you said, he doesn't overachieve when the voting matters. When the voting counts, which is, that's a whole regular season award thing to go off on. Like we're watching it unfold again with MVP this year, right? Like. It's a regular season award, but the problem is when they hand it out, like there's no way to hand out the award without the conversation happening.
It used to be worse, and that they would do it like before a game on the court, and like if that guy didn't play well that night, it was.
I want them to bring that. I want them to bring that back.
Well, and then they tried as you and I covered it together, the ridiculous award show where they held it until like the middle of June, and it's like no one cares at that point. Like you can't do that's what baseball does, by the way. They do it way after the season ends, and it's like this is kind of an odd time to do.
Well, the NFL does it right before the Super Bowl, and it also like nobody. And the thing is, it's like nobody even really cares about that. It's the NFL.
No one cares. Which is kind of interesting. Anyway, but yeah, I'm with you. Spo's very good. In fact, let's just talk about the conference finals.
Let's do it.
Today's show is brought to you by the award-winning app at PrizePicks. PrizePicks Daily Fantasy made easy. It's amazing. I know that you will love it as well. It is very easy to use, and they have safe and fast withdrawals at PrizePicks. Every day during the NBA playoffs as well, you have one PrizePicks user will actually have a chance to win and become a millionaire in one fell swoop. One entry placed after 8 a.m. Eastern Time will be randomly selected each and every day, and whoever placed the entry will be given a 6-pick flex with the following payouts. All 6 correct, $1 million. 5 out of 6, $80,000. 4 out of 6, $60,000. And details can be found at prizepicks.com/million. You must opt in at that link to be eligible for the $1 million entry. Once you opt in, all you have to do is actually go play the game like normal, and you could be the lucky winner. Download the PrizePicks app right now. Go to prizepicks.com, sign up and play daily fantasy sports. If you're a first-time user, get 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. Don't forget that promo code. It is locked on at sign up. The instant deposit match up to $100. Check it out now at PrizePicks. And one more time, check it out at prizepicks.com/million. Let's start with the East. We're already there. It's the least interesting series, if we're being 100% honest about it. In fact, our friends at FanDuel, I have the number for you right now. FanDuel has, right now, Boston is minus 550 to win the series. Miami is plus 390. And just for those of you who may not love betting odds, that equates to about an 85-ish% implied odds for Boston.
ESPN has a tidy 97.
Yeah, that okay. You know what?
Let's go into it.
I don't mean to rag on the worldwide leader.
No, let's do it.
It's really bad. I mean,
that's
look,
preposterous. You can't put that out there.
I'll say this now. I really believe Boston is very likely to win the series.
Yeah.
There is almost no chance it's 97%. And I think that I will to slightly defend them before we kill them, because we're gonna about that particular number. I think the NBA playoffs are impossible to model analytically because it's a different sport than the regular season.
100%.
It just is, and that was like it's been the case the last several. I remember last year, wasn't it like Boston was like a huge favorite at 538 to win the title over Golden State because Golden State was like 80. It was like 80% or something like that. Same thing.
84. It was like 84-16 or something.
And if you look at it, Miami in the regular season was not a good basketball team.
No,
they just weren't a good. There's a reason why they're the 8 seed. They lost to the Hawks, and they lost to the Hawks by double digits at home.
They weren't good in the
play-in game. They got killed. That game was not close. Anyway,
and they almost lost the second one.
So if you're just like, it's kind of the same thing in the other series, but the other thing is about the Nuggets-Lakers series is that the Lakers are the Lakers in capital letters, so people kind of buy it more. But if you look at that, just profile versus profile in the regular season, it would be a very large margin. Yeah. So I get why Boston's a huge favorite in the series, and they probably should be. 97% is insane. Like,
preposterous.
If it was Boston against, like, who's the team in the NBA that it should be 97-3 against with Boston?
Houston Rockets.
Series? Yeah, it would have to be a really bad team. Seriously, because you throw in the fact that
the Charlotte Hornets,
all due respect to Boston, who's probably the best team in the league on paper, they have a tendency to do some dumb stuff. Like Game 5 of the Hawks series, number one example, they lose at home without no DeJounte, and they just lay an egg. Like,
so yeah, can we talk about that? Like, they're not a juggernaut in the playoffs. They were taking the 6 games twice. Well, no, they're 6 games in 7 games.
6 games in 7 games, and they also had.
What are we doing here?
Game 5 in both series against the Hawks, they could have put the series away, and they didn't do it. And Game 5 against Philly, total no-show at home to dig a 3-2 hole. And look, they got out of it, and they improved, and they were the better team against Philly in the series. They outscored them, all that stuff. But like, I have to do a preview of the series at Sportsline, and it's like I don't know what to give out as a pick because Boston's probably going to win the series. I don't believe in Miami. I mean, it's basically Jimmy's got to be God for them to compete in the series, and maybe he is. I mean, he's done it before.
Pretty close.
But like, how are you supposed to sell a Miami pick? But at the same time, Boston just does some weird stuff. So I feel like I'm probably going to end up at like Boston to win in 6 or something. Yeah. Because like, which is stupid because they're gonna have to win on the road, but like they can win in Miami if they play well. They're gonna be favored in Miami in the games.
100%.
So I don't know what to make of it. I mean, I know that Boston's a lot better, but Miami is like, to talk about Spo, they have a great coach. They have a huge coaching advantage.
100%.
Missoula, I think has got a little bit too much heat. A little bit too much.
He did. It became like, should they fire him?
Which
and
is
like people were like, they'll never recover from. Who was it, Mannix? So it was like they'll never recover from losing Udoka.
Okay,
and it's like we're doing here's the thing. Why is this happening with Boston coaches?
Cool. It's Boston.
But like we did this with would you rather have Brad Stevens or Giannis Antetokounmpo?
Well, someone's going to try to fire Darvin Ham if they're down 3-1 in the series to the Nuggets. Despite doing a great job.
Anthony will do it, but
okay. So Miami's edges in the series, Miami's edges in the series are coach, and maybe Jimmy is the best player.
Dog in him levels.
Yeah, maybe Jimmy's the best player, but other than that, if you go line by line, player by player, it's not particularly close. Boston is a lot better. And Tatum, I'm not the biggest Tatum guy. He played so well in Game 7 after not playing well in Game 5 and 6 for most of Game 6. Jimmy wasn't quite as good last series either after having the absurd series previous to that. So okay, I'll throw it to you. What's the pathway for Miami to not only just compete but take it to 7 or win?
I mean, like you said, Jimmy has to be pretty much round 1 Jimmy.
Which is absurd.
Which was 38 points a game on crazy efficiency. He's got to be pretty close to that. Bam has to be the best big by a healthy margin. And that's not a guarantee. This is the Hawks podcast, so we're going to espouse the virtues of the great Al Horford. But seriously,
by the way, but that's okay.
But Bam has to be sizably the best big in the series, and that's on both ends, and that's consistently. He cannot kind of come in and out of being a factor offensively. That's the one area they should have a little bit of a chance to exploit. Kind of in the way that they did against Milwaukee, and I give him credit for that Milwaukee series being more willing to shoot.
Yeah.
But when he gets that ball on the short roll, he has to be willing to take that little floater. He can't let it get bothered by Horford and Williams, which means he has to be decisive. That's the biggest thing against this Boston front line is you can do stuff against them, but you have to make a quick move. It's the thing that killed Joel. It was the thing that Joel Embiid, and this was the most frustrating thing watching that Sixers series, is when Joel went quick, when he got the ball and boom, went, he can roast Al Horford when he does that.
He doesn't do it.
He will not do it. And what's the one thing Al Horford has that most people don't recognize? He has the longest arms in the world.
Yeah.
Al Horford's wingspan for being 6'10" is insane. He becomes a 7'1" guy because he has crazy long arms and he doesn't just jump. So what you do when you go chest, 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 baby hook is Al's just going to stand there. And then as soon as you go up, he gets his incredibly long arm and blocks it or alters the shot. Bam has to be decisive. Bam has to go quick and do what Joel wouldn't and couldn't, apparently. And it's the same with Robert Williams. Robert Williams is a guy that you can kind of get to jump around a little bit more, so the pump fakes and stuff work against him more because he's a little bit more of that kind of
over-aggressive.
That puppy mentality of jump, jump, jump. But he's even gotten better about that. So you still have to be decisive and go quick, but you can, the dream shake type stuff will work on him a little more. That's one thing. Bam has to be really good. They obviously need the shooters to shoot. Shooting variance is going to be the thing. We know that. I think defensively, the one thing that they can do, and they did this against Milwaukee, and I think this is the one pathway to making this Boston team look rough. They can force, and Boston is willing to just jack up threes, and they're not a very good shooting team.
Mm-hmm.
You can frustrate them with physicality the way they did with Milwaukee into just getting guys to settle for shots. And if you can get Marcus Smart shooting, and you can get Jaylen Brown shooting when he doesn't have it, and if you can make those guys become shooters first who aren't looking to attack the paint, that's your pathway. There were games in that Sixers series where I think Boston took 50 plus threes. That should not be their game.
Yeah, and that's what the thing is with Mazzulla. He wants them to. I know
he wants them to shoot, but
he wants them to shoot a lot too. In the Hawks series, the same thing. A couple guys they took 45, 50 threes, and against Miami, I don't know if that should be. You still want to take them because that's what they're built to do. But there's so much. They're bigger than Miami too. Miami, I guess,
and that's my thing.
They might play. Miami, I guess, might play the love Bam duo sometimes, but if they don't do
but
that,
you should attack it.
Right. So
that's
like,
the thing is like if Kevin Love's on the floor and you're taking threes, you are giving Miami 6 points.
Yeah, they shouldn't be
like that's the thing. And so you should, and I would bet Kevin Love cross matches at times on Smart.
Probably something like that, because he can't be. I mean, I guess if Boston starts and
maybe Robert Williams.
I was gonna say if they stay with the big lineup, you probably see him guard one of the bigs. But like if Boston goes small at all, which they do a lot of the time, because they only have really they're not even playing Brett Williams anymore.
No.
Yeah, and they're starting together at least the last couple games. So I'm not gonna do the entire take here. But I do have a bit of a theory that Miami might just be better without Tyler Hero.
Oh baby, yes, no, do it.
Look,
the people need Tyler Hero Ewing theory from Brad.
Look, I'm notably low on Tyler Hero. I will certainly
Pearl Jam.
I will certainly admit that I'm really low on Tyler Hero compared to everybody else, and he has his strengths. I will acknowledge that he's a good offensive player. He is, but with what they have to do to be the best team they can be is play through Jimmy all the time.
And Lowry makes better decisions with the basketball.
I was going to say, and now that Lowry is alive again, that's the thing.
That's the biggest thing.
If Kyle Lowry was the Kyle Lowry from the regular season, this take would not hold, because
last Atlanta series.
Right. They would just need Hero to handle the ball because nobody else can. But now that Lowry is back to some level as their number 2 ball handler, they can get by without Hero, and Hero is really bad defensively, and he's small, and he needs the ball. Whereas like Max Strus and Duncan Robinson, especially Duncan Robinson's a flat out bad defender, but he doesn't need the ball at all. He just runs off screens. Max Strus can actually play defense, not great, but he's fine.
Yeah.
Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin. It's more that it's not that Hero is bad. It's that they're playing guys other than Duncan who are so much better defensively, and Miami's defense has been genuinely good in the playoffs.
Yep.
Like in a way that I kind of buy it, other than when Duncan's on the court or when Love's on the court. If they play that lineup that they've been playing that has Lowry, Vincent, Martin, Butler, and Adebayo, or even Strus in one of those spots if you want to have more shooting.
Yeah, Strus in for Martin. Yeah,
just not having a weakness to just like totally attack. The problem is against Boston, to what we talked about a second, was kind of the inverse of it. They don't necessarily have to play attack ball in the way that some teams do because they have so much shooting. That's the question, is like, even if Miami plays their defenders, can they stop Boston? I kind of don't know if they can, even with their best lineups on defense.
Yeah, I mean, basically Miami's best bet is to hope this becomes a shooting variant series, and Boston just doesn't have it. And I mean, like that's what I'm talking about. Is like, I think the thing that Boston has to be willing to do, and this is my one problem with the general idea that like, oh well, like the shooting variance idea of like, well, you just keep shooting and eventually it'll work out, is like, on a game by game basis, that's not true. Like you just might, like guys might not have it, and like you have to be willing,
even in a series,
to adapt in a game.
It may not be the
case.
In
a series, but even like in a game.
Oh, especially game to game.
The thing that, and this is the thing that kills me about people being like, well, in the playoffs that matters. Like in the regular season, sure, like shoot it, whatever. But if you don't have it, and especially your role guys are not knocking down shots, you can't expect the switch to flip. And you have to figure out how to get buckets some other way to avoid those long stretches where if Miami is shooting it, you can't afford the 12-0, 14-3 runs that can happen, because that's how Miami builds the confidence.
That's how you lose.
So that's how you lose a game you shouldn't lose.
Right.
That's how you get a game stolen, is by being stubborn. And that's the biggest question with Missoula is Spo. It goes back to the coaching advantage. Spo has shown like he will make those in-game adjustments based on how the team's playing, and he'll play the guys who have it, and he'll take the guy. Like if Kevin Love doesn't have it, Kevin Love does not play 20 minutes a night, right?
Oh, no.
But when Kevin Love's shooting, he's in the game for like 26 minutes.
Same thing as Duncan Robinson. Same thing. If Duncan misses his first 3 shots, they're going to just take him out.
He's just gone. And so that's the thing I need to see from Missoula is like, can he do that and make those adjustments in game? Because that's where you lose a game, and that's when series becomes 6-7 games that should be 5. And that's the thing that Miami can do. But again, we're talking about all this like these are the questions, and it's still Boston's minus 550 for a reason.
Of course, and that's why. And
because it's no fun to talk about what Boston needs to do to win, because it's just like
they're just better. I mean,
90% of what they can be.
it's not controversial. You look at any number, any regular season, even the playoffs. As much as Boston's been unimpressive at times, they still have a much better net rating than Miami in the playoffs, and like they're playing against all that stuff. The reason why that I would just not totally just write it in Sharpie to quote Seth Davis would be Spo and Jimmy, obviously, and the fact that, just taking a step further, I think Spo, he won't admit this, but I think it's always underappreciated when teams know they're the underdog and they act like it and they play like it. And when I say that, I mean, if you're Miami in the series, you should want to increase variance. Something I said about the Hawks in the Boston series a few times is that you want variance. You're the 100%. Worst team.
100%.
So like you have to know that. And again, it's not supposed to come out to the podium and say we're not as good as they are. But it means taking threes with your shooters. It means, increasing variance, like having your guys do things that are maybe not the median thing, because they're going to need outliers to win the series. And and Boston might be dumb in the way they've been for 2 years, 3 years, and give them a game at some point. Maybe give them 2 games. Like we've seen
Milwaukee did.
Right. We've seen Boston do this.
Same thing. Yeah.
So that's the path. It's not going to be. No one's going to pick Miami. No one should pick Miami. No one should.
No. Not to win the series, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is, like you said, a 6-game series.
6 would not surprise me at all. I think, and it almost would be fitting to have Boston close it out in Miami by just like being like, hey, we're actually good, and waking up, because
it's what they keep doing.
They often follow up a bad game with a good game, and maybe that happens this time, and they win in 6. There you go. Our picks are on the record. All right, that is it for part 1 of this episode with Robby Kalland of UPROXX Sports and Dom on UPROXX. We'll have a part 2 sort of bonus episode with some Western Conference Finals talk, as well as landing spots for Victor Wembanyama ahead of the lottery on Tuesday evening. So please stay tuned for that. Please subscribe to the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, etc. We'll see you all next time.